Hello everyone, Seraphin here, welcome back for more Fire Emblem Sacred Stones. When I last left you guys, we had just finished off the last chapter, which was chapter 11. Moving on now to chapter 12, the Village of Silence. And something that you'll find interesting about transitioning from 11 to 12 here in terms of the chapter count is that you don't have an opportunity to stop and explore the world map. It just goes straight into the next chapter. So if you weren't coming prepared for these two in a row here, then you're going to be in trouble, I guess. I mean, Erica looks very tired. Thankfully, she's not a big wuss. Man, even Innes is like, oh, jeez, this is a long walk. Okay, well, what does living in the middle of the mountain have to do with not living off of material? Well, I don't know, whatever. Uh-oh. Monstrosities! Darkling Woods is where they come from, apparently. Okay, well that was a lengthy intro. So I went ahead and preloaded everybody for this chapter just because I had a lot of housekeeping to do. We are going to be making some primary party changes here. I've gone ahead and dropped Archer. Unfortunately, I just don't really see the need to having him around all that much. His stats are not as impressive as I would like. And honestly, we're going to be keeping Molder around anyway as our resident light magic user once he promotes, and he already has really great staff rank, so we're going to work on making him better. He might need a couple of stat boosting items to get, really going, I guess, but that Con of 9 is going to be incredibly helpful later on too, so we're going to stick with Molder. That being said, I'm not bringing him right now because we're going to be training La Rochelle up as well. She's too good. She's just simply too good not to use. She's a mounted healer. She's only level 3 and her stats are already incredible. And they're only going to get better from here. In fact, La Rochelle has a tendency, at least every time that I use her, to max out every single one of her stats except defense. And HP, I suppose, but even that's not too shabby when she's finally finished. So she's going to be incredible in her own right. And we're going to see if we can't find her some utility staves to use and grind some experience on between healing people up in combat to get her leveled up quicker. I would like to make good use of her if at all possible. She's especially helpful for the later parts of the game, so we're going to be sticking with her. I've decided that we're going to stick with Franz over Kyle. I compared their growth rates. They're actually really similar. Franz is just a little bit faster, and Kyle's a little bit stronger. Beyond that, they're almost identical. And Franz also has more luck growth. And you'll see I did go ahead and give my speed wings to Franz. I don't know why he was suffering speed-wise. He's got a really competent growth in that stat, and he just hasn't been increasing it much, so I did feed him that. And the way that I set it up is even if he gets speed for every level from now on, he will still not have wasted that. He'll just cap it at 20. So you'll see he's doing pretty good so far. I would like to get him to a Paladin if all possible. He generally turns out better than Seth, so we'll see about that. Mainstay staple of our team is going to be Garrick. Obviously, he's also too good not to use. I trained up Amelia. I spent all that time getting her promoted to a knight, and she's not that great. So we're just going to stick with Gilliam. There's no reason not to. He's turning out quite good. I would have preferred a little more defense on him, but I'm sure once he gets rolling some more, that's not going to become a problem any longer. Ross has been actually quite good up to this point. I'm very happy with how he's turning out, so we're going to keep him. Naomi has been impressing me quite a bit more lately. You'll see she's very well-rounded stat-wise, and I'm hoping she'll maintain that trend going forward. Having a nice archer on hand is never a bad thing, I think, so we're going to keep her for the time being, unless she proves to be a liability later, then maybe we'll just switch her out for somebody else. And then we have our resident glass cannon Lute. No reason not to use her. And then, of course, we have the legend herself, Tana, here, who's absolutely incredible so far, and only going to get better. That being said, we are forced to deploy Sala in this chapter. You'll see he's a pre-promoted Sage. He's actually quite good. He's not quite to the level of Pent from Blazing Sword, but he's pretty darn close. you'll see he's actually 5 levels lower than Pent, but his stats are actually still pretty comparable. He's only a couple points shy in every area that Pent was. So I guess you could say they're about the same. They have the same constitution as well. So Sala's basically just a slightly earlier joining, slightly lower level Pent. And he's actually quite good as well. He doesn't have A rank and staves like Pent did, but he does have light magic now, which is quite nice. And then Erica's, she's turning out okay, I guess, but her strength's really going to be a problem if she doesn't go any higher than that. So we have Mulder he's going to be around in the team still. He's just not needed for this map. Same with Cullen. There's nothing to steal. There's no point in using him. So he's not sticking around. We're dropping Kyle. We're dropping Archer. We're dropping Vanessa. We're dropping Amelia. So there's no reason to use any 4 of those guys. And this will be nice to have a backup if Naomi doesn't turn out very well. And Ozla's just here, I guess. I mean, he's so much fun to use, but there's no reason to use him right now. So anyway, that's our team going in. We're just going to jump right into it. I'll give you a quick look at the map here just for the sake of it. This is a very dangerous mountain range. Lots of high peaks and lots of impassable terrain. There's kind of like, you'll see they're funneling you through this one little valley here to the top here. There's a couple of villages to visit. There's a vendor over here, and then ultimately there is this gate up to this little village, and there is a promoted Tarvos guarding the village entrance. This is a Melduin. And these guys are basically cavalry warriors in that they use axes and bows. And I do not believe this boss moves at all, so we can kind of just sit here and whack at him from a distance. Although he does have a bow at some point, so we'll see how that goes. This is not a tough map. It's just a slog to get all the way from down here, right around this weird shape up to the top here. So it's not going to be difficult by any stretch, but it is going to be a bit of a slog. Oh yes, we're concerned about Ewan. Ewan being that little boy right there. We can work this out. You're talking to a zombie, effectively. So Ewan runs and hides in one of these little villages here. Alrighty, so let's get going, shall we? So we've got Bales on the map and the mountain peaks. We've got lots of Revenants, Moth Doogs, fair amount of Gargoyles as well. They're going to be harassing us from the peaks a lot. There's a couple of... what do they call these things again? Man, my brain just shut off. Moguls, thank you. And then, yeah, there's basically a bit of smattering of all the different monsters we've seen so far. And there's an Entombed over here. That'll be nice for someone to get a free level up out of. So let's just move ahead one bit at a time. We'll start off with Helium, I suppose. He can kind of lead the way here. And thankfully, because he's got actually pretty competent speed for an Armor Knight, he's capable of doubling a lot of these monster types. Gilliam is really an interesting character in terms of his growth rates and whatnot. Most Armor Knights tend to not have very high speed growth, and Gilliam's no exception to that, but his is actually reasonably decent for an Armor Knight. You usually see somewhere in the ballpark of like 25-30% speed growth for an Armor Knight. Gilliam's, I think, actually got 35 or 40, which is pretty nice. So he doesn't suffer from a lot of the same speed-based problems that a lot of other Armor Knights in the series do. Another really good exception to that rule is Oswin from FE7. He is incredibly good. Probably one of, if not the best Armor Knight in the series, behind maybe somebody like Gatry from Path of Radiance, who is just incredible in every way. He's actually faster than a lot of non-Armor Knight characters when you get him, which is pretty funny. We're not going to be making use of Sala, really. He's just going to be around to, support in case we really need him. I gave him a Mend Staff so he can heal. He's got some competent magic tomes, so he's capable of dishing out some damage. But other than that, he's just going to be sticking around to do a whole lot of nothing. And unfortunately, we don't have anything to use La Rochelle for at the moment. But we will send Tana after this Veil, because I don't want him harassing everybody. Although, why don't we let him hit her, actually? Just in case he lands a lucky hit at 28% here. Dealing with people in the mountain ranges is never any fun, but just because there's a lot of... it's just really hard to hit people when they're on mountain peaks. They have so much extra avoidance. And that includes these spiders, of course. Alright, let's see how this goes. Yeah, Tana's not getting hit. She's not going to kill him outright. Her strength's still just a little bit lower than I'd like it to be, but, she's landing hits. That's the important thing. 11 strength on a Pegasus Knight at level 11 is very good. And then Gilliam will have no issues taking on this here gargoyle. He might even double this guy. No, maybe not. They're pretty fast. Nope, never mind. Gargoyles are one of the faster monster types. Moth Doogs are definitely the fastest, especially their promoted versions. Those things are insanely fast and really hard to double hit. Basically, the only ones capable of doing that are like assassins and swordmasters. We're going to send Gilliam up ahead a little bit more. And we will let Namie take out this here gargoyle. That seems like a good plan. And thankfully these bales don't move very fast on the peaks, obviously, because well, they're just kind of crawling one little bit at a time. It's almost like they're brigands with 8 legs, if you think about it. And they're just moving down through the peaks one little bit at a time. And you'll see, because of these choke points on the way that this map is laid out, it's really difficult for me to get units through, and it takes a long time for me to move my army, which I'm not super thrilled about because it makes the chapter a lot longer than it needs to be. I mean, there's nothing really you can do about it, I suppose, but that's one thing here. It's just this tiny little bottleneck right here, and then you're going to have another one up this way, and it's just annoying. There's not any room to spread out, and you're constantly being attacked from different sides, so it's really difficult to keep everybody safe, number one, and it's also really difficult to keep everybody moving, number two. So, there's that. At any rate, we're going to leave Tana right there. And we'll let Gilliam take on some more monstrosities in the way here. It's like we're forming a convoy, almost. Nope, not a scratch. Nice try. I've been thinking a lot about how I'm going to promote everybody once they get to that point. I might promote people a couple levels early, depending, only because this game is not anywhere near as long as Blazing Sword. There's several fewer chapters as opposed to Blazing Sword. There was, what, 31 or 32 chapters in that game? This one only has like 21 or 22, so it's about 2/3 as long, all told. That's not including grind time with like the tower and whatnot, simply because, well, we're not doing that. So why would I include that? But that being said, you generally have a smaller roster that you can make reliable use of, and also you have less time to get them leveled up if you're not taking time to stop at the tower and grind. So, that being said, we're going to be getting everybody to a competent level in terms of their capabilities, and then we're just going to maybe promote them a couple levels early. It's not going to give us the most optimal or efficient growth possible, but that being said, it'll get the promotion bonuses are quite nice, and some people could really use those. I don't think Gilliam is one of them, although he does get a nice, I think, 3-point speed boost when he promotes, so we might do that pretty soon, actually. Maybe around level 16 or 17. That being said, it's going to suck because I don't like wasting people's potential, quote-unquote. I don't like promoting them before their maximum level, just because you're missing out on some free stat bonuses, some free stat growths. And honestly, you might not get a whole lot during those last couple of levels, it's totally true, but it's been my experience that a couple extra levels of training usually will make a decent difference. Maybe that's anecdotal, and it is, but at the same time, the fact that I've been playing this game for so long and that continues to be the case every single time, I think there's merit to that. There's no way I'm hitting this thing. Oh, I guess I did hit him, look at that. I've actually never seen the Bale's dodge animation, I don't think. That was kind of strange looking. If I have seen it, it's been a very long time. They tend to not dodge very often. Now, we're going to put Garrick up here in this choke point, since he's so tanky he can handle everything. Maybe not this, maybe not the gargoyles. Let's get him out of range of those, but we'll have him block the Moth Doogs here. Give him a steel sword. And we got a little extra room to start moving people through. Not a whole lot, but enough to make a little bit of a difference, I think. We'll just have loot tucked right in the middle of all 4 of those guys there so she can't get hurt. And then we'll move up our cavalry and our promoted dudes. I think Tana can kill this guy now. Yep, surely can. So we'll just slim lance him to death. Hopefully that'll be good enough. Yep, there we go. So, as far as promoting people into what classes, that's something I don't know if I talked a whole lot about, is that there's actually branching promotion paths in this game. So, when you promote somebody, you will have 2 different options to pick from, rather than it just being, they promote into this no matter what, like it was in Blazing Sword. So, when I promote Gilliam, being an armor knight, he will have two choices. He will be able to promote either into the general, which you all are familiar with, hopefully. You've seen them in this game as well as in Blazing Sword. Generals are quite nice, however, they're very slow, and very slow moving as well. And to help give you an alternate option to that, what this game went ahead and introduced was the Great Knight. And if I'm not mistaken, this is the first time in the series that Great Knights were ever introduced. And they've since become a pretty big staple, actually, believe it or not. That being said, a Great Knight is, say, an amalgam between a general and a paladin. They lack the specialties of both, but they also are a nice mix of the two. So, for example, a Great Knight is not as defensive as a general, but they are a bit faster, and they have a lot... What, really? 2 misses and 63? Come on. They're a good deal faster in terms of their speed. Instead of 5 movement, they have 6 or 7, so that's also a nice thing to have. They still retain using all 3 of the weapon triangle weapons, which is very nice in my opinion. And they are a bit stronger than paladins, and also a little bit tankier than paladins. Their resistance is awful, don't get me wrong, but if you wanted to focus somebody with more resistance, honestly, either paladin or general is probably your better bet, but more skill, more luck, that's not bad. That being said, though, Great Knights are really cool. They look really nice, too. I was a really big fan of Great Knights when I first started playing this game. They've since fallen out of favor with me a little bit, only because they've changed how they work more in recent installments, particularly with Awakening. They changed up how they work quite a bit, and not always to great effect, unfortunately, either, but they're very good in this game. I like them quite a bit. Later installments, they're not quite as good. You're better off going with a paladin or a general, I think, in later games, but... so I'm leaning toward Great Knight for Gilliam at this point. I guess we'll have to wait and see when we get there what the... I'll look at the promotion bonuses too and see what those are like. But that being said, we're probably going to go with... let's see what some other people here. Ross is going to be a Berserker, there's no question about that. Berserkers are just straight up better than Warriors in my opinion. They have the same strength cap. They are much faster, generally speaking, and they have an innate critical bonus. And they can cross rivers and lakes and mountains and all that fun stuff. So really, what's the point in not using one of those? Let's see here. Erica, however, the lords of this game do have linear promotions still. They do not have the option of branching paths like most other classes do, which is fine. Erica doesn't really need a branching path, per se. Can I get Franz way up in here? Yeah, I can, I guess. Nami is more than likely going to become a ranger if I stick with her, as opposed to a sniper like Innes. Rangers are the nomad troopers of Sacred Stones, in that they are mounted, they can use bows, but they can also use staves. So I think that'll come in handy quite a bit. That'll also help capitalize on Nami's strengths, because I think she's going to be very well-rounded, and being able to use melee as well as ranged attacks will be very valuable. Garrick's going to be a hero, no question there. Heroes are just straight-up outclass Rangers, in my opinion. And honestly, why would you want him to be able to use... Why would you want to use bows over axes? Axes are so much better in this game. In most games, really. And quite honestly, the stat spread for hero is much better suited to Garrick's playstyle. He's just an absolute beast. And heroes, as we all know, from seeing Raven in the last game, is just absolutely incredible. Joshua will be a Swordmaster, no question. Assassins are garbage, unfortunately, in this game when compared to Swordmasters. Even though they have the Silencer skill, it doesn't proc often enough, and Swordmasters just have better stat caps. They get better utility. It's just, there's no reason not to. The critical bonus is also quite nice. Franz will most likely be a Paladin, unless I decide that Great Knight is a better choice for him in the long run. I don't really know yet. I don't want to have 2 Great Knights. There's no reason to have more than one of them. I know that's one of those things where it's like, well, you can use as many of the same classes you want, and that's true. I like to try to use, I guess, mixed unit tactics as much as I can. Call me old-fashioned, but that's just how I prefer to play, so... if I do end up making Franz a Great Knight, we're going to go with General Gilliam. General Gilliam looks absolutely incredible, by the way. Although it's really hard to go wrong with Gilliam. His color palette is so great. So great. So we've got Moth Dukes and more Gargoyles coming from behind here. We're going to keep Franz behind and probably Ross to deal with them. So why don't I creep over here? Franz should be able to handle these gargoyles without too much trouble, I think. He will not double them, unfortunately. It doesn't look like... No, he will not. But he'll be able to take hits from them, no problem. 11 defense is enough. But we're going to keep moving the main body of the force moving here. And Joshua could do with a heal, so we'll heal him real quick with La Rochelle. Training her is going to be a slog, unfortunately, but again, she's so valuable. I really can't afford to not use her at this point. And we'll put Joshua in front here. We'll have Tana take out this here Mogul. Could that Revenant have attacked her last turn and just chose not to or something? It's kind of odd, isn't it? Unnecessary critical is unnecessary. Oh, that's right. So Tana is going to be fun to promote because as much as I like the concept of making her a Falco Knight, as is tradition, as she kept speed, the Wyvern Knight class in this game is superior, I'm not even kidding, in every way to a Falco Knight, with the exception of resistance maybe. But other than that, they are just as fast, if not faster, just as much skill, if not more. They are far more defensible, believe it or not. They have much more defense. The luck is not an issue because that's not really an inherent class stat, but at any rate. So Wyvern Knights also have a really nifty skill called Pierce. It's similar to Luna from some of the other games, if you're familiar with that. That just cuts the enemy's defense in half, which is really useful for punching through and defeating hardier enemies. That being said, there is a bit of a bug in this game with Pierce if you use it with a ranged weapon. For example, if it triggers off of a javelin or a spear or something. If you don't kill the guy that you're using Pierce on when you throw a javelin or something and you double them, your game will actually bug out on the second hit. And it'll just freeze. It won't go anywhere. So that's something to be careful of. If you turn animations off, it's not an issue. It resolves itself. But because I play with the animations on, we're going to have to avoid that. I don't know why that... I mean, I guess it's one of those things they might not necessarily have been able to plan for or test for, but it is a little bit annoying still. 27 enemies still, really? It doesn't seem like there's that many of them. But we're going to move Garrick in to take care of Mr. Bale here, which he's got just enough power behind him to deal with the steel sword. Bales are quite hardy. They're basically the equivalent of brigands, but in monster form, if you think about it. And they have poison claws, which everyone knows is awesome. We love poison claws, everybody. Something you'll notice is that La Rochelle can only move 6 speed as opposed to 7 when compared to Priscilla from FV7. I don't know why they decided to reduce the movement speed of Troubadours by 1 point between games, but needless to say, that is the case. It's a little annoying. That 1 point of speed actually does make a bit of a difference sometimes. Thankfully, I don't think it'll make that big of a deal in this case, but it's going to suck if I ever find myself in a situation where it's like I am 1 space away from being able to heal somebody. That being said, I don't think we're going to run into that situation too often. Alright, let's see here. Who do we want to take care of this guy here? No, Luke can't get close enough. We'll just have Tana do it. Yep, that'll work. Don't mind me as I have a drink while I'm waiting for Tana to kill things. Okie doke. So let's see here. Joshua, I'm going to be honest, I'm not sure if we're going to keep him around for the long run, only because he's not... What's what I'm looking for here? I like... It's not that I don't like Swordmasters. I think they're perfectly fine, except they're not... They don't have a lot of utility. They don't have a lot of diversity. They don't do enough. And I have a really hard time quantifying that statement because it does make a lot of sense if you think about it, but at the same time, they're locked to swords the entire time, which is probably the worst weapon type to be locked to, because there's no normal ranged options for swords like there are for lances and axes. The nice thing about Swordmasters, I guess, is that they're really fast, so they double everything. And they land critical hits a lot. But at the same time, If I want to land critical hits, I'll just use a killer weapon. And most units on my team don't really have speed problems. Or they're usually doubling everything anyway. So it's kind of like that, they have a niche that isn't all that necessary, if you ask me. And I know that sounds harsh, but that's just my interpretation of it at any rate, so... Oh, Garrick's getting shot at with evil magic here. Lovely. You gotta love that evil magic. Alright, well, we're at about 25 minutes. This is not that long of a chapter, but it's long enough that I'm still going to need to break it up. So we're going to stop right here for the time being, but I will pick back up with the rest of Chapter 12 in the next episode. So until that time, thank you very much for joining me to this point. I really do appreciate it. This has been Seraphin. See you next time, everybody, and stay classy, internets.